So, The Wild Goose Lake. This is the fourth feature production of Chinese filmmaker Yanan Dao. Oh my gosh. Pronunciation, I'm so sorry. But okay. So anyway, it premiered at last year's Cannes Film Festival, before that event got canceled too. That's another something that got canceled. That was earlier this week, right? That was Monday.
I believe so. Yeah, I think so.
Because I think we were together when I heard about it. But anyway, the story follows a mob don named Zenon Zhao, who when we meet him is running away from both the cops and another mobster family after killing a police officer by accident. After a rain-drenched, almost predatory opening in the shadows, he comes in contact with a sex worker, or a bathing beauty, as she is called in the movie by a whole bunch of characters, because her kind of operations and the other bathing beauties, their whole deal is that their job takes place underwater and it's hard to detect by police officers, which just seems really weird and unhygienic to me, but that's fine. But she isn't the woman that Zhao was expecting. So we quickly learn that the mobsters' attempts to squash a territory war between motorcycle thieves ended with bloodshed more than just that cop. So I say we quickly learn. The whole movie kind of goes through this process of in order to move one step forward, you have to look back. Like, it has to go back 4 steps. So, like, 1 step forward, 4 steps back kind of situation. It gets a little annoying. The editing is a little frustrating at times. I will say that. But this is a really well done movie, and we'll talk about that too. So, the sex worker is caught in an odd and interesting position. She has, the opportunity to reunite Zhao with his wife, the woman he was expecting that night. Or she can turn in the famed monster for a hefty reward, like $300,000 or something crazy. Yeah, a lot of money. So this creates an interesting and intriguing dynamic between the characters, and also a frustrating critique for the audiences. So throughout the movie, there's almost a filter between what the characters are actually thinking and what the audience is allowed to know. The bathing beauty, for instance, doesn't show her hand until literally the final seconds of the movie. And the only other heartfelt conversation between her and Zhao, like one of the few instances where we're given the opportunity to learn what these characters are thinking inside of their heads, is deliberately cut off by a really loud horn. It's kind of like a bleep, like I saw Sorry to Bother You again last night, and it's kind of like how they go to say that like his boss's name and they bleep it out. It's like it's deliberately cut off so that you can't like hear anything. So that being said, even though that is a complaint, I can't lie and say that the fact that this movie is set in Wuhan has given it an eerie, timely quality. I don't think the movie would play to me the way it did if we weren't in the midst of Corona and everything that's happening around the world. I wouldn't say either that the sets are naturally flushed with life, but sickly looking basements covered with mobsters, or a homely restaurant where the cook's belly is hanging out over the stew, feel like claustrophobic relics of a different time. It's like I was saying earlier that the sun is illegal, right? How about gatherings of more than 10 people? Just crazy stuff. And like to think that this is, like we talked about a few weeks ago, that documentary where the film crew was stuck in Wuhan and it's virtually apocalyptic there, totally deserted. It's crazy stuff. The design, however, of the movie feels as stylishly present as any neo-noir. In fact, it may branch out a little bit into the future as well, with this industrial neon aesthetic. Do you understand what I mean when I say industrial neon aesthetic?
I think so.
So it's like harsh neon lights outside, like harsh purples and pinks,
right,
and greens, and then inside it reminded me a lot of Upgrade when I said
I was going to say it sounds cyberpunk.
Yeah, it is punkish. It's very punkish, like whereas like Why Don't You Just Die was punkish more in its characters. This is more punkish in terms of the atmosphere that it's creating.
Gotcha.
Each shot feels so painstakingly choreographed that the story itself begins to wave. So like that's kind of like a dual-handed compliment insult or something, because on the one hand it's incredibly beautiful to look at and you can like feel the effort in every shot, but I have to admit, like, while I was watching it, I was in between this place of utter confusion and visual awe. I grew a little impatient at some points, especially when the world, which is mostly set around this lake, that's where Zhao is hiding and that's where the police are like coming down on him. When that world begins to feel a little too big and a little too scattered, it was visibly annoying to experience. But I can't say it wasn't exhilarating. The violence was also like it's few and far between, but when it does happen, like the moments of violence are few and far between, but when they do happen, they are like pretty spectacular, including one surprise death that just, you know, I've been watching a lot of WWE, so it feels like one of those out of nowhere situations, and you're just totally shocked. But yeah, even though it was very nice to look at, I did have some problems with the story. But I cannot pretend like this doesn't feel deliberate. You know, like I feel like we're supposed to feel confused and disoriented and, you know, out of whack while watching the story, because it is an uncomfortable situation, you know, like that the characters are dealing with and inhabiting. So the fact that I do honestly believe that these were deliberate, these were the deliberate intentions of the filmmaker. So that being said, even though I had some problems with the way it played out, I have to commend him for following a plan, sticking to it, executing it, and allowing the audience to experience what he wanted. So I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 stars.